I suggested at the beginning of the week, for the second time in a row, that this could be a week of announcements. And lo and behold, it's not been too bad so far. The new kit has arrived. The new home kit has arrived on Thursday with Jared Bowen wearing it, which indicates very strongly that he's staying at West Ham United for the upcoming season. On Wednesday, 42,000 season ticket renewals were announced by the club, which is a phenomenal amount of renewals given our relegation. And we've also heard earlier in the week that the work permit has been granted for Niels Koppen, the man who's likely to become West Ham United's next new director of player recruitment. That announcement could actually happen, confirmed today, or it could happen before the end of the week. But there's another fascinating development brewing, as reported by Bloomberg, the global financial media company. Now, reports are suggesting that Daniel Kretinsky could provide around £100 million of additional funding to support player recruitment at West Ham in order to kickstart our championship promotion campaign. Now, whilst the exact structure has been reported as a potential financing, a potential loan, rather than a straightforward cash gift, it's fueled optimism that West Ham will indeed have the financial resource, financial clout to strengthen despite our relegation. It will also back up Kretinsky's claim to all key players that they've been contacted, that the club has got a credible plan on the table to ensure that we stand a good chance of getting back into the Premier League at first time of asking. If that happens, fantastic. Everything changes because supporters know that promotion is not cheap. It's not going to be easy to come by. The championship is brutal, it's physical, it's relentless. And to manage 46 league games plus a hopeful, successful domestic cup run, we're going to need strength in depth in the squad. But not just depth, there's got to be experience there and quality too. And that costs money. And this is where the story becomes interesting because on the face of it, people are asking a perfectly reasonable question. If we've just banked £85 million from the sale of Matthias Fernandes, why do we need Kretinsky or anyone else to inject any more money? Well, the answer is quite simple, to be quite honest with you. Transfer fees and cash flow are two completely different things. The Fernandes money doesn't suddenly appear in our bank account for us to spend it. And here's why. 85 million is a sizable amount of money, but it's likely to be paid in chunks. I don't know what the actual structural arrangement is with Tottenham Hotspur, but almost no transfer of that size is paid up front. Typically, a deal is structured in something like, we could get a third or a half of it in one go, and then the remainder over maybe the next 2, 3, 4 years. So although we've sold Fernandes for 85 million, the club may only receive a portion of that immediately this summer. There's also, of course, the issue of it's not really 85 million. That's not the real profit because we paid about 40 million for the player, 38 plus 3 to 4 million on add-ons. And so the profit really is about 40 odd million. And then of that, 15% of that goes to his former club, Southampton. So they'll get a sizable chunk, around 6 or 7 million pounds. So before you know it, the profit really is only about 35, 36 million. But then we've got existing liabilities to consider as well. Let's not forget, in the 24-25 financial year, West Ham announced a loss of £104 million. Relegation wipes off tens of millions from television revenue. We still owe money to clubs from previous transfer deals. We still have to pay a loan back, which it needs to be done by the 9th of July to, I think, Barclays Bank of around £64 million. Now, the reason why we took that loan out is because we cashed in on transfer payments that were due to us. We were due £69 million from transfer money from other clubs. We turned that into liquidity. We turned that into cash. And we took 64 million of the 69 million. So we lost 5 million in that as well. On top of all this, player wages continue to be paid. Staff wages continue to be paid. All other club costs continue as well. So the Fernandes money, therefore, is likely to plug holes in the funding rather than going towards new signings. Now, before I continue, I want to be clear on something that I spoke about a week or so ago, and that was the possibility of Daniel Kretinsky injecting around £90 million into West Ham through a shares issue, a rights issue. Now, that would have diluted the other shareholders' sharehold in the club. Since then, this report from Bloomberg suggests something quite different. Rather than injecting equity into the club to buy shares, Bloomberg are reporting that the Kretinsky is just stating that this is a straightforward loan. Now, that may sound like a small difference, but financially, it's quite significant. Now, when I spoke about Kretinsky investing 90 million, I suggested at the time that this could be a rights issue. If Kretinsky was the only one injecting money into the club, that could result in him increasing his sharehold, whilst the sharehold of others would dilute. Instead, a loan is what it is. Daniel Kretinsky lends West Ham about £100 million. West Ham then has immediate cash available for transfers. So why a loan and why not a rights issue? Mainly because it's quicker and it's easier. Imagine if Nuno's player recruitment team identifies, say, half a dozen players. You can't turn around to the clubs that we're trying to buy from and say, well, we'll pay you once Tottenham finish paying us for Fernandes over the next 2 or 3 years. Doesn't work that way. We need cash now. A shareholder loan from Kretinsky solves that problem. Now, this loan could possibly become shares in the future. There could be options available to Kretinsky in how he gets his money back. Option one, the simple bit. He lends the money. He lends the club money. The club owes him the money back, probably with interest, and the shares aren't touched. You know, it's just a straight loan and it's money back with interest. In fact, Gold and Sullivan used to do this quite often in the early days of when they took West Ham United over. They would lend the club money and then they would get it back with interest. A lot of owners do that. The Glaziers, as a prime example at Man United, did that, saddling the club with huge debts. Option two, this could indeed become a rights issue in the future. So how does that work? Well, the club would create new shares. Every shareholder would be invited to buy them. But if Sullivan, the Gold family, and the smaller shareholders don't invest, but Kretinsky has his 100 million there, he can convert that into shares, which means that his sharehold goes up and everybody else's sharehold is diluted. Again, this happens quite a lot in football, and it's a recognized way of increasing control whilst clearing the debt to a shareholder. So which is more likely? Well, right now, the evidence points towards a shareholder loan. That's what Bloomberg have reported. If they intend to report an equity or rights issue, they would have certainly used that language. But instead, they've repeatedly described this as a loan. Now, why would Daniel Kretinsky do this? Why would he just loan the club money rather than trying to get a bigger share of the club? I would suspect that this might have something to do with David Sullivan, who still owns 38.8% of shares in the club. The last thing Sullivan will want to do is to see his shares diluted from a rights issue. And that's possible, you know, although I'm speculating, Sullivan is likely to try and want to block that kind of thing. Hence, it's easier for Kretinsky just to say, I'm lending you the money, we're going to use it for transfers, you pay me back at a time that we agree on. And Kretinsky has, or is about to, become, you know, already the club's largest shareholder after confirmation that he has purchased 16% of the Gold family shares. So he's already increasing his sharehold from 27 to 43%. So he doesn't necessarily need to increase his sharehold any further at this moment in time. So his investment in the club only increases in value if West Ham United return to the Premier League. So he lends the club £100 million. We use it to buy players, and we get up back into the Premier League, hopefully at first time of asking. Then it benefits him. It benefits his sharehold. It benefits him getting paid back quicker. You know, because promotion could be worth over £100 million in things like broadcasting income, commercial revenue, and player valuations. So lending £100 million to secure promotion could be a financial rationale if it protects the value of Kretinsky's larger investment in the club. So, anyway, why not just bank the Fernandes money, as I've said? Because Kretinsky appears to be thinking in a much bigger way. Selling Fernandes isn't necessarily intended to fund an entire squad rebuild. It may repair some of the balance sheet that I've said. The additional 100 million could then become the money that actually helps rebuild the squad. And that's a huge psychological shift for West Ham, because for years, West Ham supporters have been told, we don't have any money, there's nothing available, we've got to sell our best players in order to survive and hope for the best thereafter. Now, if Kretinsky was prepared to sell Fernandes and still make another £100 million available, he's effectively saying, we're not rebuilding because we've not got no choice. We're rebuilding because we're determined to come straight back up to the Premier League. It's a completely different message, and it's one that helps explain why optimism around the club has risen so sharply despite relegation. And there's something else here to consider as well. If Daniel Kretinsky lends 100 million instead of buying more shares, it sends a message to the supporters. This isn't about me, Kretinsky, grabbing more control of the football club. It's about giving the club the resources to rebuild. His ownership doesn't change, and what changes is West Ham's ability to compete in the transfer market. And one final thought. A shareholder loan doesn't necessarily mean Kretinsky can never increase his ownership. If in the future West Ham can't repay the loan, I've already said this, if all parties agree, there are corporate finance structures where debt can be converted into equity. That's known as a debt for equity swap. There's no indication that's what's being proposed here, but it's worth monitoring because it explains why shareholder loans can sometimes become ownership later on. For now, though, the report points to a straight shareholder loan, not a shareholder issue, so there would be no immediate dilution of David Sullivan or any one other shareholder's stake. And with the imminent announcement of Niels Koppen coming in as Director of Player Recruitment, this would be the perfect time for Kretinsky to make this loan. It will give Koppen the confidence that the financial resources are there to go and get the players that he identifies. And as I've just mentioned, it gives the likes of Jared Bowen and other key players the belief that there is indeed a plan to get us back up to the Premier League at first time of asking. Right, I'm going to stop whittling on. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. A QR code has just appeared here. Should have done that earlier in the show. If you're new to the channel or if you've watched before and yet to become a subscriber, click on that link. It takes you straight to the subscription page. Subscription is free of charge. No loan required. So do become a subscriber. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed the channel. Hit the bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, and hit the hype button as well. Have a great Thursday, and I'll see you all soon. Oh, and by the way, congrats, England. You made it difficult for yourselves, but well done for getting through to the next stage.